Welcome back to the People's House. We must rededicate ourselves as representatives of the people to work for the best interests and highest ideals of our people as we confront the most challenging economic conditions since the Great Depression. As we begin another session, we should keep in mind 5 goals. Create jobs now, fund basic education, save the safety net, ensure equality, and provide opportunity. First, create jobs now. Too many of our citizens are suffering from unemployment and underemployment and all the problems that go with that. We must respond. When we faced another economic crisis 10 years ago, for those of you who were here then, I met together with a representative of a certain airplane company and one from a certain machinist union who were working as partners in common purpose. At that time, we discussed a list of 7 items for the legislature to consider to help basically save aerospace manufacturing in Washington state. And in the 2003 session, we accomplished those 7 items and actually added a few more. And then 2 years later, we corrected one of the original pieces of legislation to make sure that the unemployment insurance benefits were fair for everyone. Back then, it was not easy. There were a lot of conflicting points of view. Now, whether you thought the list was too little or too much, in the final analysis, we got the job done. With the great news of the 737 MAX to be built in Renton and the historic agreement between the company and the union to put planes in the air, not blood in the water, the future is brighter for us all. And we didn't just focus on aerospace. As part of One Washington, we developed an ag agenda to help farmers and farm workers to not just survive international challenges, but to actually thrive in the global marketplace. From aerospace to agriculture, and for many other accomplishments that have improved the lives of our citizens, I am very proud of this House for doing our part. Now, whether our parents built planes in Everett, grew wheat in Walla Walla, or overhauled ships in Bremerton, we recognize that we are a state of innovation and productivity. The people of the state make things, they create things, grow things, and build things. Well, right now, there's a draft proposal being circulated that would create 25,000 jobs in the construction industries. Now, this year, putting our people to work by renovating schools, building public works, creating housing, cleaning up the environment, and meeting a number of other needs in concrete, tangible projects. By the way, for those who say that government doesn't create jobs, let me remind you that this idea continues in the tradition of the hydropower and irrigation projects in eastern Washington, which have provided decades of benefit to people all across the state. Now, when you consider this proposal, just remember a few things. Remember a few people. Actually, a lot of people, because so many are unemployed. Remember the veteran returning home from war looking for a job. Thank you. Remember the young apprentice learning a skilled craft. Remember the unemployed parent who will now be able to bring home a paycheck. With the House and Senate working together with business and labor support, we can enact this proposal, and everyone will benefit all across the state. Jobs now. Let's just get it done. And also, let's take action on proposals to increase the number of students graduating with college degrees and certificates in high-demand fields to fuel that economic growth in aerospace, high-tech manufacturing, healthcare, and other industries. Jobs now. Let's get it done. Our next goal, it's a big goal, fund basic education. Last week, the state Supreme Court issued a ruling. They stated that basically we already knew, about our paramount duty in the state constitution. Even in tough times, we need to fund basic education, our common schools. At the same time, the court recognized the work the legislature had already begun to address this problem, work initiated by this House. Based on the hard work of many, many of you, we enacted House Bill 2261 in 2009, followed by House Bill 2776 in 2010, both times sponsored by our Majority Leader, Pat Sullivan, who worked with Representatives Hunter, Maxwell, Haig, and Danmeyer, and many others here today. Give yourself a round of applause. These two legislative acts outlined a path forward and a time schedule to increase and reform funding for our schools. With our creation of the Quality Education Council, we have already started a journey for better funding of basic education. Now, in addition to funding, we have a lot of other work to do in basic ed. We need to promote quality teaching and successful learning with better training and evaluation of our teachers and principals. We need to improve and integrate science, technology, engineering, and math into the curriculum and teacher prep. We need to improve high school graduation rates and share best practices among local school districts. And we need to build on our work, on your work, to foster financial education and literacy. By the time they graduate from high school, our young people need to know how to get decent terms on a home mortgage, how to take out a car loan without getting taken, how to weigh the cost and time needed to repay a student loan. This should be a practical part of our core curriculum. The overwhelming cause of the Great Recession was abject greed on Wall Street and banks that jettisoned the time-honored principles of responsible banking. But had we done a better job on financial education and consumer protection, some of the damage could have been averted. In our budget deliberations, we should not make a false choice between education, funding education, and fighting poverty. The best way up and out of poverty is getting an education. And schools can only be successful if students are not battling the pressures of poverty. And also, as we redefine basic education, let's remember that in order to succeed in school, a kid should be healthy and ready to learn. The investments we have made in children's health have brought us national recognition and additional federal funding for our Apple Health program. We received a performance award for Apple Health, which currently serves over 730,000 kids all across Washington. It's a complete win-win. Apple Health not only helps kids with health care, it also helps their families make ends meet in hard times. Your commitment to early learning programs, the most productive investment we can make in education, also brought us national recognition and funding. This session, we can take early learning to the next level. We can adopt the bipartisan recommendations of the Quality Education Council and strengthen early learning programs from birth to age 5 and prepare a lot more kids to get the most out of K-12. Think about this. Washington is only one of 4 states to receive recognition for both those issues, children's health and early learning. We are national leaders. Give yourself a round of applause for that. Next goal, save the safety net. The state budget is much more than a spreadsheet, it's a moral statement. As we consider home care for the elderly, lifelines for the disabled, food for the hungry, and the basic health plan for working families, we should keep in mind that funding these programs is not only morally right, it is very popular. Just like our proud safety net tradition of Social Security and Medicare. When asked what state programs should be protected the most, recent opinion polls show that 70 to 80% of our citizens strongly support safety net services like home care and basic health plan and assistance for people with disabilities. By saving just two of these popular programs, the Basic Health Plan and Disability Lifeline Medical, we not only provide critical care to those most in need, but we bring in over $300 million in federal funds to our Washington. And by saving those programs, we are saving 10,000 jobs in clinics and hospitals all across the state. It is important to remember that these two programs form the infrastructure that we will need when Medicaid is expanded in 2014, when all those living in poverty will get the health care that they need. And for those who live above the poverty line, the new health care exchange will provide access for people of all incomes to affordable care. Now, as we work to save the safety net, we must objectively examine the best ways to spend the available dollars. If we don't have a well-managed safety net, we incur costs in other settings, in hospital emergency rooms, and even in public safety. An effective safety net not only makes moral sense, it makes financial sense. Nearly every family in this state includes someone who has relied on basic social and health services at some point in their lives. That is why the public expects us to save the safety net. Another goal, ensure equality. The principle of equality made us a great nation. It inspires people all over the world. It's a very powerful notion. Nobody likes to be discriminated against. Everyone wants a fair shake, whether it's equal opportunity when you apply for a job, or equal rules when you apply for a home loan, or equal justice under the law, or equal representation in redistricting, or equalization of property taxes for schools. Equality is one of our most fundamental ideals. And as we consider the next call for equality, just ask my daughter's generation about marriage equality, and you'll see the future. Ellie's middle name is Rosa, after Rosa Parks. By taking a seat on a bus, Rosa Parks stood up for the cause of civil rights and equality. On that day, there were people who said it wasn't a great time to act. But for Rosa Parks, that was the time. As was the case more than 50 years ago, some will say this isn't the year to consider this issue, that there are more important concerns. I respect that there are strong views on both sides of this issue, but this is the right time to be fair to people and to choose equality. Last goal, provide opportunity, which brings me back to my daughter again. Ellie worked very hard at Western Washington University. She got good grades, and she even became a teaching assistant in some of her classes. I could just imagine. But she's also lucky. She's graduating without a student loan debt, and she already has a full-time job. Many of our young people are not so lucky. They are bearing the burden of the Great Recession. We want our sons and daughters to be the best they can be, but we are not doing our best for them. We must ask some very tough questions. How are we going to finance opportunities for the next generation? How can we increase the number of graduates and degrees, graduates with degrees and certificates in careers like aerospace, high tech, and healthcare? Can we launch a focused effort for tax reform to create more resources for higher education? How do we ensure greater accountability in institutions of higher learning? Will the private sector rally to raise money for the Opportunity Scholarship Fund, which we created last session to help provide state need grants? And tell me, why is it that I can get a loan for a new car today at 0% interest, but young people pay 7% interest on a student loan? Particularly when I only paid 3% when I graduated from UW back in the last century. Yeah, it was the last century. I hate to admit that. Luckily, Luckily, many of you are working to answer these questions and a lot more. And despite our budget woes, last year you increased funding for financial aid for students. This session, we can create an investment trust that can help lower interest rates on student loans and help provide our businesses with the educated workforce they need. You have also proposed ways to make sure that students are getting their money's worth. For example, lean management to streamline administration. With these efforts and a lot more effort, we can promote jobs and opportunity for all. The 5 goals I've outlined are obviously challenging to achieve. I know we face very difficult decisions. And I know how much you and your family sacrifice so you can serve in this House. I want to thank all the members and their families for that sacrifice. But let us also remember how lucky we are. None of us go without a paycheck. None of us go hungry. None of us go homeless. None of us lack health care. None of us lack the opportunity to get an education. So as we go about the work before us, let us remember that the people we represent just want what we have: jobs, education, security, equality, and opportunity. Let's get to work. Thank you very much.